Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again, back with more HOA stories. In this video, a homeowner association claimed my wind turbine is illegal and sued me over it. I am not even an HOA member. Here is what happened, let's dive right into the story. And the first one starts like this. I feel like with the internet and sites like this to tell stories, there's a lot more knowledge and understanding of struggles that farmers go through. One that I've never seen enough of is how high an electric bill can get. We use a ton of different tools and machines, all of which require electricity to work. Sure, some can be gas-powered, but with the cost of gas, you might actually be crazy to see that as a better option. I feel lucky to live in a more modern era where I can have different options, and that is what I decided 1 month after another large electric bill had me wanting to pound my head against the kitchen table. I did my research and found that I could build my own wind turbine on my property to generate power. It would be clean energy too, which not only would be a bonus for my morals, but for something else too. In my state there is a push for clean energy and people's taking steps towards reducing their carbon footprint with clean energy sources that can get benefits. In my state it comes in a form of a very nice sized tax write-off. I knew that building this thing would not be like building a chicken coop. I would need permits and permission from the state and experts to install it. It was not a quick process and it took months for all the paperwork to go through and check if my farm was large enough and even eligible. It was though, and I finally had everything I needed to get my turbine built. I got a cease and desist letter from the HOA. In the letter it said that my wind turbine was against HOA bylaws and was also an eyesore for the entire community. I was extremely confused and scratching my head at this because, well, I'm not in the HOA. It turned out it was for the area next to my farm that I didn't even know had an HOA since I don't live within it. I tried calling to explain things to them, but whoever was on the phone was being belligerent and not understanding what I was talking about. Just giving me instructions on where and how to pay, instead I went down in person to find the HOA and talk to them about the letter. At the time, I really thought it was an honest mistake, but not after speaking to them. Me, I think you made a mistake sending me this letter in the mail. HOA, is that not your name and address? Me, it is, but my farm is not part of your HOA. I don't know if you got that information wrong or something. HOA, I don't care if your property is within the HOA or not. That wind turbine monstrosity can be seen by everybody and it needs to go. If not, as the letter states, I will take you to court and they will force you to not only remove it, but pay us a fine. Me, look, I followed all the laws and I have permits and everything. I can assure you that I'm allowed to have it. HOA, I don't care what papers you have. Either get rid of it or expect the next letter to be for a court appearance. This guy was some power-hungry nutjob the way that he was speaking to me. Clearly nobody had taught him what manners were when he was a child. I couldn't change his mind or stop him from taking me to court over this though. I had to pay for a lawyer and take time away from the farm to go explain all of this to a judge. It was clearly a frivolous lawsuit, but as long as they had a lawyer who was willing to press forward, I couldn't do much about it. During court, I found out that the HOA guy was even crazier than I thought before. He was trying to come up with reasons why I could not have the wind turbine outside of the fact it was against HOA bylaws. Since he was probably told I was not in it and that would never hold up in court, he had two set excuses for an argument, the first one being that since the wind turbine was visible from the HOA properties, then the HOA should have some kind of say in it. That it would be their properties affected when homeowners wanted to sell, and then they had arguments that you may have heard from a certain person, but I don't want to get political here. They claimed that wind turbines were dangerous and I was going to be killing all the birds in the area with it. Then they claimed that it was going to make whales go crazy, despite the fact that we live nowhere near an ocean. This guy clearly believed some weird stuff and figured throwing it all at the wall in court was the way to go. My lawyer claimed that the wind turbine was built legally on my property, and since I'm not in the HOA, they should not get a say in anything. They have no legal right to tell me what I can and cannot do, only the state does. The judge ruled in my favor and told the HOA they did not have a right to meddle in what I chose to do with my own property. And also, they had to pay my legal fees. I was not done though, because I sued them right back for attempting to infringe on my property rights. My lawyer sent theirs a letter and they wanted to settle this outside of court, knowing that going back was not gonna end well for them. So they had to give me some more money from that whole ordeal. My wind turbine stayed in place and I was amazed how well it actually worked. I was not expecting it to generate as much energy as it did, and I could run my entire farm on it. Plus, the clean energy and tax write-off made me feel like I made the best decision in the world. Speaking of decisions, the members of the HOA community were not happy with the ones they had made and the money wasted. They voted to replace the board with new members that were reasonable and wanted to do good and not just have power. The only reason I knew this is because the new board wanted to meet me and make peace, letting me know that they were in charge now and nobody was gonna bother me about my farm anymore. I think the old HOA people were just lucky that they knew when to stop. Filing a pointless lawsuit just costs an HOA money and in the end paying for both sides of the legal fight plus any reparations. I was worried they might have to come back to harass me or even vandalize my farm. If they did, I would have been able to press criminal charges and then they would have been in big trouble and even gone to prison or something. I was prepared for the worst, but I'm glad to say none of that happened. The only other time I've been contacted by anybody from that HOA was people living there asking me how much I was saving using clean energy and thinking about getting solar panels and trying to convince the HOA to change the rules to allow for it. So far I have not seen any, but it would be cool if that HOA went green after this whole thing. And the next one is titled, "Am I the a-hole for telling my friend that I slept with his disabled younger sister?" And by the way, before we start, I noticed a massive percentage of my viewers have actually not subscribed to my channel and I would love to change that. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing to my channel because it would mean a lot to me. So anyway, John and I are both in our 40s. He was my friend through middle school and most of high school. We hung out together, played the same sports, did church summer camp, etc. Basically, we grew up together. I also knew and spent time with his sister Mary. Mary has cerebral palsy and uses an electric wheelchair. After graduating, John went to university while I stayed back home to work at my father's business and go to community college part-time. Mary also went to community college and we ended up hanging out a lot. John and his family liked the idea of me being like a big brother to Mary. Mary and I grew closer and we began having sex. We were not exactly dating, but it was a lot of fun for both of us because Mary's family is very protective of her. We both agreed to keep our relationship a secret. Eventually though, her family found out and there was an ugly confrontation with me and them. They accused me of taking advantage of Mary because of my familiarity with her and because she was disabled. Mary insisted she wanted the relationship, but they dismissed her views like they always did. John was especially angry at me, even trying to start a fist fight. My father got involved and things eventually settled down, but my friendship with John and his family was over. I ended up leaving the area after I got my associate's degree and moved out of state to live with my mom. So 2 decades since then have passed. I've stayed in contact with Mary, but only exchanged basic pleasantries with John and his family. They are still connected with my father, so it's just a courtesy relationship. 2 weeks ago, Mary came to my city and we met for lunch. It was a company event with her co-workers and vendors, but I still enjoyed seeing her again after so many years. We continued the evening at her hotel room and I ended up spending the night with her. This Saturday morning, I woke up to find a message from John. We have barely communicated for the last 20 years, so I was startled to see his name. Apparently, he had gotten around to looking at the pictures Mary had posted from the lunch and saw me sitting next to his sister. It was like we had teleported back in time to 20 years ago. The same accusations and angry insults got flung at me. He dredged up crap I had forgotten about years ago. He ended his message warning me not to spend time with Mary. I was outraged by his message. We are 2 grown men, not high school kids. How can he say those things about me and his sister? In my anger, I messaged him back saying that not only did I spend time with Mary, but that we slept together again and he should get over himself. It felt good to retaliate like that, but I immediately had my doubts. When I talked with Mary, she was not upset, but she made it clear that she would have preferred I just ignore her brother, like she does. We are still keeping our plans to see each other again, but I realize Mary is disappointed by my childish behavior. So, Reddit, am I the a-hole for my reply to John? And yeah, Ripe Stars, let me know what you think about this in the comments. Is OP being the a-hole here or not? And I would say OP is definitely not the a-hole, but I would love to hear what you think about it. Anyway, update to the story. After reading the comments, I'm apparently not the a-hole for my relationship with Mary, but my response to John was unacceptable. That's fair, I've apologized to Mary and she has accepted my apology. That does not change the fact that I screwed up, of course, for sharing intimate details without first asking Mary. I am the a-hole. I will never do that again. As for the fallout of my a-hole moment, John sent another nasty message that got even more personal, including telling me some things about our past and my father that were very hurtful. Following the advice of the comments, I replied calmly and then blocked him. As I mentioned in my post, I'll be seeing Mary again. I'm spending this spring/summer back home with my father. After his wife passed last year, he decided to wind down his business and sell our old house. I'll be going back there for about 3 months to help him with the business, fix a few things at the house, help him pack and just hang out together. It is several decades of memories to be put away or donated, so we are taking our time. We'll barbecue and go to baseball games like we did when I was a kid. Mary and I are looking forward to seeing each other again this summer. Our weekend together was memorable despite my later stupidity. There's a fair chance that John will come and try to stir crap up, but I'm not stressing over it. Mary means a lot to me. It'll be good to have 3 months to enjoy each other's company before I have to leave again, this time for good though. Also, I'm sure that Mary and I will stay in touch, maybe even see each other again in the future. Thank you for the comments and messages. And the next one is a malicious compliance story. Have me work throughout the pandemic, promote me and then don't accommodate my disability? You can pay my short-term disability insurance for that. So let me give a little backstory first. I started working at Walmart before the pandemic happened as a full-time apparel employee. I happened to have epilepsy that started in my mid-20s around 2015. I'm also quite understanding of other people's disabilities and often try to work with them since I can relate to having issues. Example, I use hand gestures and/or writing for deaf co-workers. This helps with basic communication that most hearing people don't bother with, and it's normally appreciated that I do this. Anyway, I got to stay in that exact same position throughout 2020 and part of 2021. Naturally, I had to still go to work as an essential employee and deal with anti-masking idiots and worry about both my parents who also work in retail. I managed to get myself promoted to the digital shopping department by transferring stores and pointing out certain key skills I have that are really useful in retail in 2021. I had politely asked for the minimal requirements from my department manager of number 1, being able to take medication at work, and number 2, not having to bring orders out to cars because I lack what is known as an aura. Basically, summed up here, I cannot sense seizures coming, though I don't have them very often due to medication. A grand mal plus busy parking lot at work seems like a bad idea. My department manager agreed to this condition as long as I did other work to help out the digital team instead, which was completely reasonable to ask for in my opinion. So as per the request for a lot of closing shifts I would work, I would take up phone duty, pre-set up the orders to go out and/or do returns for the department. The issue here was the personal department person. She kept forgetting about my condition repeatedly over the next year. This was despite me bringing in medical notes from my neurologist for my file, pointing this out more than once on why I shouldn't be scheduled solo, and having the department manager talk to her. After over a year, she scheduled me completely solo for a closing, which I noticed and texted my department lead about. I did the official suggestion of hers despite my thoughts that corporate Walmart was likely even dumber than her on basic disabilities. I only asked for the exact same things I asked my department manager for, both very logical and minimal accommodation requests. As I suspected, Walmart's Sedgwick said, "We cannot do this unless you can change departments." All departments suggested either wouldn't work due to time and/or location, or they were back at the same level as apparel, which would lower my position and even pay. Sedgwick put me on an automatically placed LOA after a few days without my permission. This was to allow me to figure out what I should do over the next 4 months. So I called up and asked the Walmart Benefits Center about this. As of late 2019, Walmart signed all of their employees up for a free to the employees short-term disability insurance without officially telling them. I filed to get this insurance to pay for my entire LOA, politely my situation to a total of 3 people, and was given the short-term disability payments with back pay for exactly when they put me on leave. I would rather have my paycheck and insurance stick around for a while despite Walmart and Sedgwick being idiotic. I quit Walmart after having gotten holiday employment with Target for 2 months at that point. And the next one is another malicious compliance story and is titled "Never Tell Me What to Do." So I am a disabled veteran, and at the time this actually happened, I was solely depending on a walking stick. I could not walk more than 10 feet maximum without any assistance. I was asked by a friend of mine to be a bridesmaid at her wedding. She quickly proved herself to be a bridezilla from hell, and everything had to meet her vision. Everything had to fall within her very rigid scope of what the aesthetics should be. She made a couple of what she claimed were innocent comments about my walking stick. I offered multiple times not to be a bridesmaid and would assist in any other way I could help, but she refused every offer and insisted I had to be a bridesmaid. Then I heard from another close friend and also a bridesmaid that she was very upset that I was insisting on using my walking stick. She made a comment saying that she was just gonna hide it and then I would just have to go without it. Looking at the mutual friend's face when she said that, she tried to laugh it off as a joke. Well, there was no doubt in my mind that she was going to try to have my walking stick go missing. So of course I made arrangements. Sure enough, they have the wedding rolls around and while getting hair and makeup, my walking stick disappears. I was not happy and told everyone that I have to have it back. I cannot walk down the aisle without it. The bride insisted that they didn't know where it was and they looked everywhere and I was just going to have to make do. I said so after you joked about taking my walking stick and goes missing and you want me to make do? Her exact words were, "You will just have to do what you can do to get up the aisle." Cue my malicious compliance. I texted my boyfriend that he went out to the car and brought in my mobility scooter that I had rented just in case I needed it. I had him put it out of sight but where we could get to it easily, and then he or the other bridesmaids physically supported me. We made our way to the back of the hall for the start of the ceremony. The bride, who had been talking to her father and not paying attention, did not see the scooter until she started to walk up the aisle, and there are her 3 bridesmaids. 2 standing tall and me sitting on the most hideous looking multicolored with sparkles mobility scooter I could find. If looks could kill, she would have planted me. Within seconds of the ceremony ending, my walking stick had been found. She and her new husband brought it over to me and told me it had been found and I could get that god-awful scooter back out to the car. I mustered up a tear and told her I was so sorry, but I was in so much pain from having to try to walk without my walking stick that there was no way I would be able to go without the scooter. I'm very proud to say that the scooter is in over 90% of her wedding photos. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I gotta say, that was a true bridezilla, and OP was 100% in the right here, and respect to OP for enacting this absolutely perfect malicious compliance. It could not have been done any better, honestly. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. This happened a couple of years back when I still used to live in South Africa before moving to Sudan. My family has been comprised of proud farmers that love what they are doing. However, recently we've been downsizing a little bit and sold a lot of our animals. We had 2 pieces of land a couple of kilometers away, so it was naturally divided between me and my elder brother. Our parents' house was near the larger plot which my brother tended to, while I had to routinely go up and down the road to take care of the smaller plot. It was not an issue for me considering the roads were mostly empty and whatever neighborhood we had around was pretty quiet and peaceful. But when we finally had some extra cash to spare, our dad decided to buy me a small place of my own near my land. It was not modern by any means, but it had more resources and luxuries than my old home, which I appreciated. He had also apparently installed CCTV cameras all around the house, which I thought was overkill, but would later come to realize that it wasn't. The first year went by easy. The neighborhood around my new place was livelier than the previous one, though it did pose some problems like children trying to free my chickens or diving face first into the fresh pack of manure I had bought. Still, overall, things were looking pretty good. A few weeks later, someone moved into the house that was being built beside my own plot for 6 months now. It finally seemed complete and I was actually looking forward to meeting with my neighbor. However, the moment I laid eyes on him from across the yard, I just knew he was going to be trouble. Still, I tried to make the first civil move. It went okay. He did not say much, mostly answering in non-committal hums and half-baked excuses, so I did not find any reason to continue talking. A couple more days pass and by now the other residents are also interested in the new person, though they too got shrugged off. I know it would be too quick to judge someone, but who in their right mind would ever turn down free homemade food? Anyway, I chose to ignore him, until one night I wake up to the loud noises of chickens clucking in my yard. I instantly reached for my shotgun before lunging off the bed, a bit confused since this had never happened before. I reached the chicken coop to find nothing more than its open door and a chicken clucking loudly, some of its feathers plucked as if it was struggling. I look around and still found nothing. Not even footprints in the muddy part of my yard. It must be around 2 AM then, and I was already tired from the day before, so I simply put the chicken back and decided to deal with it the next day. Unfortunately, the entirety of the next morning and afternoon was spent in traveling with my dad to some official who would help us grow our business, and by the time I reached back home, it was starting to get dark. I knew that it couldn't be the kids. They were rowdy and troublemakers, but they were not undisciplined enough to break into someone's house like that. Which also meant that there might be some burglar or thief roaming around. Now, this information was more concerning to me than anyone breaking into my chicken coop. Most people in this part were not used to robberies and hence kept their windows open, especially during rainy season when the breeze was cool at night. So as I went to bed, I decided that I would at least tell the town sheriff about the encounter I had the other day. Wake up and get ready to do just that after having a peaceful sleep. It's not like I expected the officials to start looking into the matter immediately, but I also did not expect the sheriff to basically ignore me with a simple wave of his hand like I was some cattle in his field. God, if it was not for the elderly residents, I would not have even approached these useless idiots. I returned home and decided to just complete some paperwork before sleeping my anger away. Maybe it was the combination of tension and irritation, but I don't notice the change in my yard until 3 days later. I squint my eyes to make sure that yes, there are several pots of plants missing. There's no longer a small money plant that my mom gave me last summer, no longer a tiny pot of cactus that I bought on a whim, not even the flame lily that I had been trying to grow for a month now. That night I made sure to stay alert, even going as far as to set up alarms, but nothing out of the ordinary happened. The next night I decided to follow the same routine, staying alert and cautious, but yet again, absolutely nothing happened. I was about to give up when on the fourth night I had heard a rustle near the window of my bedroom. After noticing that only expensive plants were disappearing, I had placed a fully bloomed bush of red roses under my window in hopes that this thief would be stupid enough to go for it. And guess what? He was. I tiptoed my way out of the house and around, raising my phone. It's not clear to me because it's almost pitch black, but on the screen the face is recognizable enough for me to realize that it's my a-hole new neighbor. I rustle the grass below my feet to have the thief running away before going back inside. The next morning the video is posted on the Facebook page of this town, and by the time I return from tending to the fields, the residents are all giving the new house sour looks. I could hear the loud gossips as my neighbor comes out to throw his trash out, his head down, but when he notices me, he raises his head and throws me a nasty glare. Not that it scares me in any way, I could literally see embarrassment oozing out of him. But it seemed like this one was shameless enough to continue to trespass on my property, digging up my vegetables, making a mess of my flowers and stealing more of my plots. I was almost about to break his nose when my dad suggested I simply put up an electric fence that would teach him a better lesson than anything else could. I followed his advice and hired the people for the job. Interestingly, my neighbor was away for the days that it took to set up the electric fences. Call me petty, but now I was almost looking forward to him being dumb enough to jump in my property. I did not have to wait long. The alarm linked to the electric fence goes off soon after I had gone to sleep, and while I'm groggy and irritated, I'm also done with all of this. So I take my trusty shotgun and run out to see this man almost convulsing on the ground, his face contorted in pain, and I would have felt bad if I hadn't noticed his hand going towards a small pistol nearby. As it was, I raised my shotgun towards the sky and fired a shot, effectively making the stupid man drop the pistol. I honestly wished it had ended then, but this donkey of a person gets up, takes out his phone and calls the police with the most crap-eating grin. All that time I am just standing in the middle of the yard like, how stupid can a person be? Anyways, the police arrives and this man tries to pin the blame on me for having unsupervised electric fences that electrocuted him while he was taking a nightly walk. Not only is the excuse like the crappiest, it is clearly visible that the electric fence is behind the wooden one, so no passerby could be electrocuted until they jump in. You know, I should almost thank this man for calling the police and not the sheriff, because they were calm enough to listen to my story, take a look at the CCTV footage in my laptop and see the video I took of him when he was trying to steal my roses. As was expected, the police let me go and cuffs this numbnut of a human for breaking into a private property, trespassing and carrying unregistered arms. I did not honestly want him to go to jail for something like this because I knew he brought that pistol only to scare me, and I'm still glad he spent a few years behind bars, as in that time I was able to shift out of South Africa and never see his face again. And yeah guys, if you cannot get enough of my content, please don't forget to check out my podcast by searching for Ripe Stories on all major podcast platforms such as Spotify, Apple or Google Podcasts. Furthermore, you can find bonus content by going to patreon.com/ripeyoutube or by clicking the join button here on YouTube. For a small monthly fee, you will get access to dozens and dozens of exclusive videos you won't find anywhere else. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.